sure we're going to have a fantastic discussion, on the topic that you talked about. We've been, hearing and talking about, smart manufacturing, automation, Industry 4.0, and these days this is the buzzword. Obviously, if you go out and speak to industry practitioners and implementers, you will, get a mixed bag of responses. And, one will then understand that, it's, the whole philosophy of Industry 4.0 and the associated elements. It's not just an event, but it's actually a process. And, it's great that industry has adopted this process, and as we speak we are going forward in the right direction, which is heartening. And obviously, when we implement, when we innovate, there will be challenges, there will be failures, but that's how we learn, and that's the purpose of this session, is to understand from the practitioners what their take has been. It's interesting that if you talk 10 years ago and you possibly recall history, you would have heard that in the next 10-15 years the whole digital value chain would be a real thing, with skilled workers becoming redundant, and it would be fully automated, and robotics would take over and everything would be interconnected. But as we stand today, obviously it's not a reality, and possibly it's not going to be that as we understand it now better. Because obviously what we say, it's going to be a mix of when you talk of assembly lines, it's definitely going to be more automated than what it was before, but it's going to be a mix of machines as well as skilled manpower, and that's where obviously the human beings will also need to acquire new skills to manage the machines and the the whole digitization that goes along with it. So that's the thing which would obviously take us to delivering superlative operations, and that's the reality. So so that's really what we want to talk about, is that if you look at any kind of assembly line or manufacturing operation, you would have elements of and if you want to really connect that in a digital value chain as envisaged, you would have elements of robotics, IoT, machine learning, AI, and everybody talks about it. But how does this all integrate into into a larger system? And how does it actually deliver the ROIs that business is looking at? That's the question that CEOs ask that is it we're going to invest, is it going to give an ROI or not? And sometimes I heard a very interesting somebody was leader was talking about. He said that sometimes it feels like that we are implementing under peer pressure, and sometimes when we implement IoT and other related solutions, it's more like it's a solution in search of a problem. So that's sometimes we do that. So and that's not obviously the right thing. Is to understand from a business point of view, what is it that we need to do. So having said that, and that's where I would like our panel to shed light based on their experiences and what they have experienced in their companies, as well as the other interfaces that they've had. So my first discussion, for which I'd like to invite Suresh to talk about, is that when we talk of a digital value chain and smart manufacturing, it requires end-to-end integration of not just your intra-business but inter-business processes and systems, and that's really what a systems thinking is all about. So so what role does system automation play in this, and how can we look at it as an integrated system so that we can get the maximum benefit out of it? And actually we talk of true synchronization in that sense. So I'd request Suresh to talk about that as a start.
Thank you, Ambarish. I think the context that you have set up is very important and very critical to understand this journey of digitization, industry for automation. There are various terms which are getting used for something that all of us are looking as future of the way manufacturing would look like in future. So obviously, when we look at automation or digitization, machines are the first one which come to our mind. And that's the first starting point, and I would say a basic point. The more manual work in a machine, the less of opportunities you have to actually collect the data and try and see where you can see the further opportunities of adding value and improving that. So you mentioned about the end-to-end connectivity and end-to-end value chain about this. That's the real value of you can call the industry 4 value chain, uh, because standalone machines can only give a benefit up to the level of that particular station where the machine is. The machine can be more productive, the machine can give you different data, etc., but unfortunately that would be limited only to that particular station or that particular part of the entire value chain. Where the other part of this interconnectivity and the value which it can bring in is when you look at interconnectivity between different parts of the value chain and the process how it completely works. So in a layman's terms, sometimes when we explain to people, it's like there is one what you call as a mechanical automation on the shop floor, and the other part is your system automation, which connects everything and which actually brings in that value which sits between the two parts of value chain, and then collectively it becomes that value. So what happens, for example, uh, I think most of the advanced manufacturing companies, wherever you have things like a vendor portal, for example. ERP automation exists almost everywhere. Then there is a lot more which is based on, let's say, as basic as some barcode enabled or QR code enabled, data capture and data communication between the different parts of value chain. So uh, taking example of, let's say, I mentioned the vendor portal. If I have to just take that, you integrate a vendor portal with your ERP system. So the moment you punch in your demand for the month, so the MRP run would uh, come out with the demand for the month, the purchase orders that can go to the suppliers, and then the suppliers who are integrated with your vendor portal, their system gets energized in a real-time basis. So you don't have to wait for the demand to come in, and your system is integrated with that. So it is prepared to take the next action, on a real-time basis. And then as soon as the supplier actually is ready with the goods to be shipped to the purchasing company, the purchasing company gets, let's say, the intimation on a real-time basis. So one is you've got a real-time information, and the more real-time information you have, you can avoid a lot of ambiguity and uncertainty in between, and you can plan your inventories, your other things in a much I would say more efficient manner. Similarly, when the digital information is created, it helps you uh, take some actions well in advance, and that digital information can be transferred in a very efficient way, and it can help you recreate the same information at a different place just by using a particular, you can say, code around it. As I mentioned, when the supplier sends the material, supplier is anyway creating an invoice. So typically when you are not connected, typically when you don't have this digital interface, when the material is received at the purchasing company, then everything has to be again typed into a system to create a GRN, for example. Now, when the supplier has already created that, it's very simple. You just use that data and then do it. So that's one simple example how a system automation can help you bring in more efficiency, transparency, and a real-time information which can help you plan, your activities, your resources, everything in a much more efficient way.
Right. Very interesting. And I think, what you talked about, the integrating the vendor through a portal or an equivalent into your system can really save time and crash lead times like anything. Because one of the things, and especially, and I'd like to, possibly ask Rajesh if he can share some thoughts on this, because, normally, in any durables industry, or for that matter, where we have discrete manufacturing, you would get in a lot of bought out items, which possibly get assembled, and then the finished product is made. And hence what you talked about in terms of the port, integrating your vendors to shorten lead times, it becomes extremely important. So Rajesh, if you have any additional thoughts to share on this.
I hope that I'm audible.
Yes, yes, you are.
Thanks a lot. I think Suresh took up a very valid point. And continuing into the topic, certainly being associated with manufacturing since very long, today slowly the whole family of OEM and a manufacturer, it's not only limited to the OEM and manufacturer. Today, as supplier plays a very important role, so it becomes very important how well you are integrated and put a very important thought process towards that system. It goes into a top seater. So, in that on that front, what we have also done, and in fact, over the period of time, we have stressed upon in doing is that how closely we have integrated our system together with the system of a supplier, so that whatever I plan, it is very well communicated to that community, and the things that gets transferred from that supplier to our premises, it should be in such a seamless way that it should not affect our overall ecosystem of manufacturing. So today there are so many technologies that are involved, so many softwares and so many infra, they are already existing. It's all depending upon the requirement of the organization, in what way they want to go ahead, in what way they want to plan. Things are there. It only requires a vision. It only requires a great planning on the part of the OEM together with the suppliers to make this whole ecosystem of understanding, whole ecosystem of information and knowledge sharing, which ultimately not only benefits the OEM as a whole, manufacturer as a whole, but it also goes a long way in streamlining the activities at the supplier end. Not only from the point of view of delivery, it is also from the point of view of innovation, also from the point of view of culture. I've seen when they start understanding the importance that it is giving and the importance with which they start working at their end, certainly it's a win-win situation for both the supplier and the OEM.
Yeah, absolutely. And would you like to add anything, Suresh or Sandhya? If you have any thoughts on this, otherwise we'll move on.
There is one point. In fact, Suresh and Rajesh sir both have explained it very elaborately. But I would like to bring only one point while developing the overall ecosystems and building the end-to-end solution. It is very important is that when your product or your system is on with a customer, and when customer starts facing some challenges or some issue, you should able to track it back to the down the level from where that problem is arising, and that's where this ecosystem plays. The part number tracking Suresh sir has mentioned, or the customer portals or supplier portals, all these things should again link back to the customer what he's facing the challenges, and you should able to drill down the problem and address the problem at a root cause level. And that's where I think this the whole system and integrated way of monitoring the supporting functions and the whole system should be functioning. And I remember in one of my one of my plant where we built the system where it starts from the raw material procurement till the product is shipped to the customer. We are able to maintain the complete tracking system, so that any problem part failure, we used to track it to the defect in the raw material, whether the composition or the type of the raw material which has been used and by which supplier it has been used is a right quality to trace down the root cause of the problem. So I think integrating this complete ecosystem will really benefit from that aspect also, other than other aspects which both of you have covered.
I think this is a very important point, Sandhya, that you have brought in, because as Ambrish started in the morning, it's not a standalone solution. It's a end-to-end value chain solution, and each part of the value chain has a lot more that it can gain through this digitization and this process. You mentioned about the consumer benefit. See, there are innumerable benefits that, innumerable examples, I would say, case studies about how consumers get benefited with this. One is the traceability which the manufacturer can use to trace back and see where exactly does the particular product or component, inside that product, some kind of attention, because there is a tendency to fail, for example, for a particular component. The other part of this is the value that the consumers get are on, let's say, in many of the products, there are spurious components which some people, some unscrupulous, service partners, they start doing that. Through this digital connectivity, you can give that assurance. The customer gets that assurance. The customer can find out by herself that yes, this is a component which is good for my product. This is good for me, and just by these days it's very simple. Just by scanning a simple QR code, the customer can make the assessment about the genuinity of a part which is getting used in the product that the consumer is using. So very very well, I would say, elaborated on that part of the benefit to the consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think customer benefit is the key, because ultimately, if customers are happy and they believe they're getting the right kind of product and the service experience, they will come back to you. And that's possibly the right point to bring in this aspect, that since we talked of the value chain and the customer benefit, but since we have panelists from the consumer durables industry and customer facing industries. So let's say now it's summer, and suddenly there is a demand for air conditioners, and you need to have the right products available at the point of sale while managing your inventory levels and ensuring that there is the obsolescence aspect of it is taken care of. And the other aspect is in terms of the delivery experience, the service experience, and ensuring that the right quality products are made, because when demand is high, quality sometimes can become a challenge, and also while optimizing costs. So these are several challenges that manufacturers face, not just in the peak times but also possibly on average demand times. So I'd like Rajesh to talk about how does digitalization help in addressing some of these challenges, and if you can share some experiences of what you have done to let's say handle this aspect and ensure a superlative customer experience.
Very important topic, very important point and question. So certainly this is not only consumer durable goods. I think it is cutting across all the industries.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely.
We all want our product to go to the market as soon as possible. It should be consumed by the consumers as soon as possible, so that the whole gamut of supply chain it keeps on running. But certainly across all industries, they have their own challenges. They have their own issues that come across during the gamut of this whole manufacturing process, which at times put a dent on the supply chain activity, and sometimes it does comes as a type of big complexity. So we also face lots of issues from that point of view. So here, what I will try to elaborate further is that we in a business, if I see, we have been there since a very long time. So what it has done to the industry is, to the organization in which I am is, it has divided my organization into two parts. One is obviously the part that is there from the very beginning, since last 15, 20 years, which has become a type of legacy. The processes that are there, certainly it's on the older side. There are things which is dear to us, but still there are so many things that we want to do with it to keep into the pace on today's requirement. Sometimes we do face challenges. And then there is a second part also, when we plan something for the future. There certainly we do take into consideration what are the things that we can put today, so that I overcome all the challenges that we are facing from the processes that we are experiencing today. So especially on the second part, where we plan for the new one, planning for everything is very, very simple, very easy. It only requires a commitment from the leadership and a commitment to be at a level which is world class and which is at par with any other industry. So on that front, we are taking very aggressive step by going all the latest technology, latest tools which ultimately goes on into addressing all the concerns related to delivery quality and the throughput time that we have to have. And for this, certainly we are taking a complete and good amount of role play from high degree of automation into the lines with the usage of lots of robots into our processes, also cobots, all the latest technology that is there. 3D printing also, we have gone into that. And these are some things that we are already doing it in all our new processes. Vision system, thermal expansion, thermal instruments. So all those things which can help our quality team, which can help our the production team to come up with a clear-cut requirement of adhering to the market demands. But yes, in the area of the old area where I find that nearly 30% of our equipment we are still using, which were 20 years back, there is a challenge in integrating that within our system. So it is still working as a type of, you can say, a standalone system. So it is not only leading to some type of losses into our in our system overall, but certainly at the same time also it is giving us pressure how quickly we can overcome that and move it.
Yeah.
So, true, today as we all have moved ahead, and also the amount of knowledge and the supplier base that has developed over the period, they have also come to an age where they can also offer us solutions which completely eliminates all the issues that we are having. So this is one big change that we are seeing over since last 4 to 5 years. So these are the various insights that I've got on this topic.
Okay. And you're able to get the right ROIs on the investments you're making?
Certainly. Well, ROI is one thing which, if you see from a shorter period of time, you will always find that you are not getting the return. But when you go for an investment, you have to see from the point of view of long term. I'm putting a robot, not putting a robot for a year or year and a half. It will be there for the next 10 years, 15 years. So when you calculate the ROI, you need to consider all those facts also. You need to consider with the passage of time, all other things also become expensive. Your
Absolutely.
manpower cost also goes up. Today, 5 years back, the manpower costs were somewhere around $2 to $3 per day. Today, it has grown up by nearly about 70%. And the way at which the manpower cost in India also is growing, means very soon we are going to catch any other countries also. So the advantage that the other countries used to have in improving the ROI due to their high manpower cost, might be it will get compensated in our case also 4 to 5 years down the line, where we are also seeing a rapid increase of skilled manpower cost that is coming up into the world.
Yeah.
So ROI will never be an issue in
Correct.
adding into the system.
Yeah, so you have to take a long-term view of it and look at it holistically is extremely important rather than get swayed by short-term gains and pains, right?
Sure.
And yeah, and since you talked about using cobots, robots, and various kinds of hardware into the system, and typically these obviously start generating a lot of data for us, because they are all automated, synchronized, and they start generating a lot of data for us. And that's the other thing which has obviously come into the fore, where if you look at these digitized value chains, where you have the hardware overlaid by their capability to generate a lot of data connected through the internet, which obviously you can use to the way you want to, and actually becomes sometimes a headache where you don't know what to do with this kind of data that is getting generated. So whether we use it constructively or not is totally left to us. So I'd like to request Venkat to talk about how he sees the role of big data analytics, and overlaid with machine learning, AI. Is it really working, helping solve problems or not?
Yeah, good afternoon to all. So actually, if you look at the present scenario, the fast-moving digital world, you can say Industry 4.0 and other digital and digitalization initiatives which are taking the world to the other dimensions. It's become critical for businesses to measure measure and track their service delivery performance, especially in the incident management matrix that maintains the uptime, the downtime, and at the same time the outrages and efficiencies and effectiveness, everything that that has to be tracked and monitored. So in that context, the big data plays a major role. So if you talk about the industry context, how this big data helps, I will come to the data and all. First, how it helps the industry. As I said, this incident management matrix, which is the matrix which really determines your effectiveness and efficiency in the industry. So for that, there are four major things one has to see. That is the mean time to repair and mean time between the failures, mean time to failure, mean time to acknowledge. When you talk about mean time to repair, that is the main, most of the people discuss. Very seldom remaining three things people discuss. When you talk about the mean time repairs, there are four things again comes into picture. One is repair, recovery, and respond and resolve. These are the four things which are to be addressed during you are talking about time to repair. So how do you address these things? You address only through data and the analyzing data and the segregating the data. Now, what is the advantage of the big data? The advantage of big data and that using the data for this incident management matrix, the first one is the safety of the equipment. That is the foremost important thing. At the same time, safety of the equipment as well as the people around the equipment. And the most important and very, very relevant to the industry is the predictive maintenance. Predictability and reliability of the equipment, wherein you can have that kind of predictability with the big data. And of course, with this, what will happen is that you can internalize your resources optimization. At the same time, you can have a reliable production schedules. And coming to the ROI and other things that we'll discuss a little later. Now, when you talk about big data, why many people are failing in digitalization, or you can say any other IoT initiatives, many industries come into that, implement, and they say that we didn't get the results because they directly enter and get into the fourth gear, third gear. That is not the way to enter into this one. First thing is that you have to have a level one, where you have to collect the data, accumulate the data at operators level. That is the first thing they have to do, and they have to master that one. And gradually they have to get into the level 2 data collection points, whereas all variables and all those process parameters are to be somewhere they capture and store. That is the level 2 maturity. And the level 3 maturity is once you have this data has to be analyzed, segregated, and then used for your further optimization or improving the productivity. So this is what the data helps you to optimize your processes. But in order to have this big data and the data analytics and machine learning, so what is required is that the mindset of the organization, the mindset of the people who are working there. So we cannot blame any system or this digitalization or industry 4 which is not working. This because they're perfectly working. There are n number of examples across the globe. What is the difference between successful and unsuccessful organizations is the mindset of the management, how they wanted to take it forward. Many people struck around the ROI. ROI is not an issue at all for these initiatives. ROI will definitely come, as Mr. Rajesh has said. You're not investing this one for one day. You are investing this for the long-term sustainability of your organization. That should be the mindset of top management. Even if it is not yielding your ROI immediately, but one day it will yield, because not only capturing the data and installing all those digital gadgets, what you are doing is that your mindset. You are changing the culture. You are adapting your people to the different kind of work culture. That's where it helps. In my opinion, the big data is very important, but the data collection method should be incremental one should take a baby steps and graduate to the higher level to use the data to your advantage.
Yeah, I think very well said, Venkat. And you brought out the right thing about the mindset, and it's actually a shift. Because for us to look at data, I think generally people are want data but are also uncomfortable handling data. So I think it's a contradiction in many ways. So how do you address that contradiction? Is taking steps, rather than jumping to saying, okay, we'll do predictive modeling around it, to say, okay, how do we learn from it, and take baby steps to take it forward. Sandhya, would you like to add to the perspective what Venkat has shared?
I will bring a little different perspective to this. Right, Shankar sir has brought it very valid. Venkat sir has blocked very valid points here. But if you see data, even if you see the previous histories also, data was existing. Okay, only the form of data has changed. Earlier, you used to have a pen and pencil paper to collect the data, and based on that, you do some inferences, interpretation, and decide your maintenance strategy. In discussion, there are 3 points which are very, very important. One is to reduce the downtime and increase the equipment life. I will come back to the MTBF again, because the data, form of the data has changed from paper pencil to Excel sheet to the data, computerized data, cloud data. The form of data has changed, but the data was existing there. And then also change how do you interpret the data and how you make a decision out of data has changed. And that again related to the generation of the maintenance which you are using for making your equipment life, for improving your equipment life, for reducing your downtime, improving your uptime. And that's where the data, big data, data analytics, or to that matter, machine learning and AI played a critical role into the industry. Specifically from last 5 years, if you see, machine learning and artificial intelligence, there is a new word which is getting coined nowadays, which called as industrial artificial intelligence, which talks about the inside factory or inside manufacturing setup. What are that artificial intelligence which can be used for improving the overall performance and KPIs of the organization or of the plant? And from that point of view, MTBF, MTER, they are getting shade off actually. They are getting vanished. Everything is getting controlled by the data, and you are getting upfront indications and the upfront interpretation of the data for making the decision about the equipments and the life of the equipment. I will take one more step ahead. From predictive maintenance, the situation using industrial artificial intelligence, the situation has moved to the prescriptive maintenance. I am sure most of you must have heard about the digital twins. And in digital twins, you prescribe how the functioning and the life of that equipment has to be. And then when the situation arises, there is a prescriptive maintenance, that will machine self align himself to the requirement of the performance of the machines or the performance of that system and the part. And that's how the overall productivity or the throughput of the equipments or the throughput of the overall plant or the assembly line is getting increased. So MTBF is getting, I say the importance of MTBS is reducing by using machine learning. The predictive maintenance or the prescriptive maintenance is coming into picture using the machine learning as well as the AI, that is the industrial artificial intelligence. And that's where the data analysis, the data, big data is playing critical role. And at the same time, how do you collect the data is also becoming critical. Industrial sensors, IoT enabled sensors, identifying the critical parts or the critical equipments into the plant, creating a environment where you have a cloud or where you have a clear identification of what data strategy you want to deploy on those equipment plays a vital role if you really want to deploy the technologies which are comparing the ROI in the today's scenario. And these are the long-term benefits which needs to be derived out of this kind of decision making.
Yeah, absolutely. I think very valid point, Sandhya, in terms of, and in fact, the way what you've described, possibly, it's the seeds of how the future of operations and maintenance is going to be. So possibly the maintenance department of today, the way it is currently structured and the way it currently looks at things will totally transform in the future, So, and possibly the way maintenance departments get reconfigured is something, very interesting. That's going to pan out based on what you've talked about.
Just one example I will share actually. We experimented in my previous organization, we experimented that we decided we will not keep any spare parts, and we will deploy the predictive maintenance strategy with an identified set of machines. And we created the whole environment around that using proper centers, data strategy, capturing and analyzing those data. And we decided we'll not keep any spare part for those identified machines for next 1 year. And believe me, till for complete 1 year, we never required the spare part to keep in our stock actually. We got the indication well ahead of the time, and we could buy the spare part when it was required to change it, and we change it as soon as it reached to the factory. My point here is that it will reduce your investment of spare part and inventory, maintaining the inventory related to that. And that is one of the big advantage you get if you start deploying those data strategy and predictive and prescriptive maintenance strategies along with machine learning and artificial intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very valid point that unless and until it starts to give a high level of impact, like reduction in inventory and optimization of your workforce, then only it really starts to give the required performance that business is looking at. And logically, from an operation standpoint, it gives that superior reliability, which everybody is wanting to deliver quality. Yeah. And since we're talking about big data, and obviously the data is generated through these devices, and we've talked about the IoT in in the earlier discussions that we have had. Just wanted some quick pointers on the use of industrial IoT. We can talk of it in two parts. One is obviously which is within the factory, and then today increasingly you find durables having embedded with IoT, so that it provides customers a superior experience, and logically it also helps the manufacturer as well. So I'd just like to ask Venkat to talk a little bit about the adoption of IoT and the challenges therein, and what's your experience been?
Yeah. See, just I wanted to put 5 points here. What exactly IoT would do for you or for anybody? The first is it will give a clear visualization of processes. That's one thing. The second thing is that the production performance also you can predict. And next, as we discussed a little while ago about the maintenance and maintenance spares and how do you predict and prescriptive, proactive, whatever you say, those methods that will provide for you to use, and of course analytics of the data, and then whereby you can optimize the processes or maybe the procedures. And last one, but not least one, is the energy management system, especially those companies which are energy intensive companies like industry and secondary and primary steel industry. The energy management system is very, very important. Not only the consumption point of view, the measuring, monitoring, and control point of view. Now, what IoT actually does to industry is that discussed. This will give a same dimension to your whole approach towards your equipment and the space management, the inventory, the maintenance of the machine, reducing the downtime, all those things. The second most important thing is that if you are not into the process industry, service industry, it helps you and gives a lot of options to your field service technicians, a lot of insights about maintaining the equipment remotely. That's very important for the field service industries which are providing the services like IT and IT hardware systems especially. And another thing is that asset tracking, and you can track your assets wherever you are, how my asset is performing, what are my assets, which are the assets wherein the efficiency, the performance has to be enhanced. This will give a complete picture of your assets. Of course, this I would say IIoT, Industrial Internet of Things. That is the word we commonly use nowadays in India. Allows your customer satisfaction double, make it double. Whatever you do now, if you are not connecting your customers and suppliers to you, then you are alone then. That doesn't make any sense. And at the same time, of course, it improves your facility management system. When I talk about the facility management system, it's not only machine, not only people, it covers entire system within your organization, right from top to bottom, people, resources, machines, and systems, procedures, everything. So that's how this IoT helps in the industry. I would say in my previous organizations, what IoT has done for us is that we have taken small steps. We took one machine, we experimented with that, we migrated that one IoT systems, artificial intelligence, data analytics, programming, and then we collected the parameters and optimized the system. Then we got a good results. Those good results drive us to develop new products, develop new customers, develop new mentality in the people, so that this system works. That we should put our focus on that. That's the power of the IoT in the system. Then what we did is that we have gradually implemented all those systems into various machines in the organization, and we integrated that data. That's that. And then what happened is that I could not disclose those figures, but phenomenal change in EBITDA. So if people properly use this IoT, they will get ROI. That is a small thing, but they can turn around their industries. But again, the focus and the result-driven approach should be there. Now, but it's not easy to implement in the industries across. The challenges are always there. I wanted to put a few challenges here. The challenges here is that the industry is not mature enough to add these technologies. That I would say, especially in India, in few companies, few industries are very much interested. They understood the importance of this IoT, and they are implementing it. They are getting the results. But most of the companies, this is one of the burden, like any other systems. They think that who will invest the money? I have already people. The work is going on. Why should I invest anything? So the industry is not matured enough to absorb these technologies. And of course, lack of training. Lack of training in the top management level, lack of training in the middle management, at the same time, the lack of awareness and training at the bottom also. So overall, the training and awareness of this IoT results is lacking, but who will take the responsibility to teach them? That is the one big question. Now, as I said, the ecosystem in the country should be developed. The ecosystem in the country should be developed means the nation, as a nation whole, the country and the administration has to take a challenge to train people. See, when you are into IoT, it's not only industry, it's not only the people, it's the country which, as a whole, we have to develop. Somewhere the government and governance also take responsibility to propagate the advantages of this IoT and make the people aware, especially small scale and mid-sized companies. And as I rightly said, ROI is not an issue, and it is not immediate also. That is a fact. So people should understand that. So nowadays, if you talk about any industry, then another philosophy along with this, although digitalization is sustainability. About the sustainability. How do you get the sustainability? You have to invest something to get that investment, maybe through this IoT and digital initiatives. That's what I just wanted to brief about the IoT and the challenges and how it helps to the people, and how government has to proactively come and help the people, and that the government has to take it. And the top management people should understand and get it done, get it implemented in the industries. That's it from my side.
Sorry, I think you made some valid points, because right now, if you look at data which says about close to 70-75% of IoT projects fail, and you brought out the challenges of why they fail, because if it's not the management or in the organization does not drive it correctly, in terms of first itself being aware of what needs to be done, and then engaging the organization. And one of the very important point is taking a small experiment, learning from it, and then implementing it, and then scaling it up through other projects that you take. So that gives the organization an understanding of what needs to be done, what will work in their environment, because many times you try to transplant solutions which work elsewhere may not work in your environment. That's something that is extremely important. And you also talked about that in terms of the information that gets generated should help in coming out with new products, and you talked about that. And that was the next discussion I wanted to drive, was that ultimately when we look at big data that is generated through both outside our ecosystem as well as inside the ecosystem through IoT that we have implemented or other sources. So ultimately, one of the things is it gives us improvement in performance, but it should also help us with, say, our new product development, coming out with better solutions for customers. So I'd like to put this to Suresh, and he can share his thoughts on this. That how are these helping with, new product development, and are they shortening NPD timelines? Are they improving product performance which are delivered to customers? Is it improving time to market and success rate? So if you'd like to talk about that, Suresh.
Regarding when we talk about a new product development, obviously there is a new product development process, NPD timeline, stage gate, everything. There are a lot of things which go as part of this entire new product development cycle. But there is one very important aspect of all of this, which is what is it that the consumer is looking for in the product. And I think every company, every designer would like to give the best of the product to the consumers. But then the key point is, what is that best product which is in the eyes of the consumer. A lot of companies, or I would say most of the consumer facing companies, they do a consumer research. They go to the consumers, they try and ask, what do you like in the product, what do you want in the product. Now unfortunately, in most of the cases, the consumer herself many a times doesn't know what exactly to expect in a product, and they respond based on the questions, the way they are framed.
Correct.
Do you like this in the product? Then the consumer would say yes or no, or something like this, something like that. While the fact is, consumer is the only one who knows herself the best. What do I need? But sometimes it's difficult to explain, because the consumer would be able to tell what exactly is being asked and is in front of that, and the exposure which has been given so far to that product. What is coming out in future, what can be better, etc., is actually out of the window at that moment. So the new, maybe the help which is coming through this big data and this IoT and this entire ecosystem that we are talking about, is how exactly is the consumer using the product, and what are those habit related things which are related to the product. Say for example, what is the duration, what is the peak time for the product to be used, what is the best way the consumer wants the product to be done, what are those interface things that the consumer would like the best. So this is something which can be captured best when the interface or the interconnectivity or the experience is captured through a digital medium, because digital medium is the most accurate one to replicate what exactly is being done. So this is something which I think has given a big boost to the consumer research area, where capturing the expectations and aspirations of a consumer around a product. For example, I mean, not just in the usage cycle, not the performance one. Most of the time, even fit finish and the shape size of the product is such that the consumers are not able to explain. But if you give some kind of a, you can say, methodology through which the consumers can explain the various iterations around it, the digital thing allows that. Okay, would you like blue color? Would you like red color? Would you like, fit into this corner of kitchen or that corner of your drawing room? Then you can create those models in a virtual models in a way. In a consumer these days, you can create a virtual model in which the consumer can actually walk in. So a lot of companies have started doing that. They create a virtual world around the product and then create different variants of that product in different color combination, different shape sizes, and how this is interlinked and connected with the other, you can say, decor of the home, office, etc. And then consumers are able to add much more value compared to a simple blind exercise. I have a pen and paper, I keep asking 5 questions, 10 questions, and sometimes the product bombs in the market when it goes out, because we believe the consumer has given everything right, but perhaps the consumer sometimes is not able to translate the expectations into the proper this thing. So this particular thing, I think there is a huge upside which is coming on this, and this is still, I would say, early days into this. The more this ecosystem starts developing, we will be able to get even more. For example, in all those areas where this is connected, I mean, Google virtually knows everything that we are doing 24/7, and
Right.
then we start getting our preferences reflecting into what we get on our. Somebody starts calling us, giving us, depending on how we are connected on that do not disturb platform for us. But then you search something, and then sometimes you get something related to it which you are actually not intending, but it's of very interest to you. So that is something which is I would say, a big benefit to the product development cycle, the way it works. And you talked about reducing the NPD cycle. So there is a physical work which has to be done. So obviously that work remains what it is unless you change the process around that. But the way it is helping into this is it it brings your requirements in a much more definitive way. You perhaps are able to avoid one or two iterations on the way during your NPD cycle, and that certainly is something which is reducing the NPD cycle.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think some excellent point in terms of how the nature of consumer research is actually changing because of the data analytics and the effort to understand customer needs better. What really they want rather than what they're telling you. So I think that's where the gap lies today, and that is being addressed. Rajesh, you'd like to add a couple of points to this?
Yeah, certainly. I think very well captured. Over to what it has been told. Let me add points from my side also. Today, every organization, they are into the way and the thought process how fast their product can come to the market. And in order to do this, there are two basically phases that are there. One is the developmental phase, and then second is the industrialization phase. Being into auto industry for nearly 20 years, I remember the days when it used to take close to around 3 years to develop one car, 10 years back. Now, the same time today, it has come down to close to around 2 years, and in coming times, it is going to go down as less as close to around 13 to 14 months. Now, how and why it is happening? What is ultimately leading to this change? So this is totally being driven by today huge amount of and good technology that exists today, which was not there earlier. So let's see. In the case of development phase, when the product is basically developed, we used to do lots of solid modeling. We used to do lots of clay modeling in order to come and see exactly what is the design and how the design culminates into a product which ultimately leads to the manufacturing of the equipment which can manufacture it. But today there are technology, digital twin. I had a wonderful experience of digital twin when I did one of the last project with my previous company, where during the developmental phase, we developed the complete product on a digital model, and we could very well see exactly what is there in that particular model. And this was something nearly 2 years before that model was going to be put into the market. And that ultimately led to a very close inheritance and close integration with the plant. In fact, we were making a new plant to make that new model. So those developed design ultimately helped us to create a new factory on digital platform, and we could literally see production happening on digital phase before we made the plant. And what advantage we got was when we did all this simulation product and the industry together, we could find out so many issues coming up, which we incorporated into the RFQs when we are putting or making for that new plant to come up. And this led to the complete construction of the industry, which normally used to take close to 12 to 13 months. We could erect that plant in only 8 months of time. So this ultimately is a clear-cut indication that how we could reduce that time, which normally takes long, and which aided by the right technology, we can minimize. So certainly, many things are there today, and every industry they are putting their efforts and activities in such a way that how fast they can bring it to the market, how efficiently they can bring it to the market. And today, certainly, we have a lot many technologies. 3D printing, wonderful. Means today, we need not, for many cases, nearly about, initially, we used to make prototype tools and dies. Today, we are directly printing this part on the printer, and we are doing our trials. And it is giving us so much advantage to us, which was not there 5 to 10 years back. So these things are going to get inculcated into the system more. I will see that things that were brought to the market, the time is going to cut down by nearly more than 60 to 70% in coming times.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think, not just the time, and you also get a first time right kind of an outcome.
Right.
I want to bring one more perspective here. Both Suresh sir and both examples, Rajesh sir, both examples are more from B2C products point of view, right? How the industrial IoTs or data can be benefiting from the consumer perspective, but from the B2C products. I want to bring a perspective how it is really benefited when it goes to B2B products actually, and especially the equipment manufacturing. Just one example, we used to make in my previous assignment, we used to make a heavy gearboxes, and which goes to into the steel industries or the sugar industries as a part of their overall manufacturing process plant, assembly line and process plant. What we started doing is we started deploying some of the IoT related capabilities on our gearboxes and send it into the plant. And over the period, we started capturing the data from those gearboxes, and accordingly, we started doing the improvement in our products actually. So why bearings were failing, where the heat temperature were coming, where the lot of stresses were coming, why the reliability needs, where the reliability needs to improve, vibration needs to improve. So all those data we used to capture from those equipment and accordingly make a necessary design material changes in our product, and accordingly keep on improving the performance of our product and when they goes to the different customers or the different industry. I think that's one of the best use I have seen of readily using this IoT related data or the capturing the data through cloud and deploying that into improving your own products and your own product performance.
Fantastic. I think, that's an extremely good example of how a successful IoT implementation can be done. I think with that, I think from a time point of view, we are, I'm sure there's lots to talk about, but from a time point of view, we are at the end of our allotted time. So there is some time budgeted for question and answers. So, I request the audience, if they have some questions to the panel, request you to please share your questions, and based on the time available, we'd be happy to answer those.
Yes, so my team and myself have been going through the questions that we received from the audience, but it seems that the panel discussion covered a whole more than the gamut of the questions that came in, and the points that they mentioned is kind of repeating what in fact Mr. Amrish had already put across, and each of the speakers had actually so in detail and beautifully mentioned of. So in lieu of aiding the speakers to not repeat their points, I can see we have around 15 to 16 questions, but they are pretty much around the same topics that we've already touched upon. So with this, I think it would be great if we could conclude the panel. That would be amazing as such.
Sure. So I think then, great. So, if we've managed to, through the discussion, answer the questions, I think, it bears well on, what the discussion has been. So I just request, us to summarize maybe with a couple of closing thoughts. So let me start with Sandhya, and then we can go around the panel and everybody can close with a couple of closing remarks, please.
Okay. First of all, it's a very relevant topic, which really, I can say the life of the organization, each aspect of the IoT, each aspect of machine learning, big data, automation, all those technologies are becoming a walk of life into the organization. And this has really made organization to improve upon various aspects of their performance, starting from getting the customer inputs, end-to-end cycle, value chain, getting from customer inputs and then giving back the customer what is expected as a finished product, and also monitoring the performance of those products when customer really start using it. So if you see, it is a closing the complete circle, but at each chain of this, you have a lot of information to collect, you have a lot of data to collect, and then use that data, make a decision using that data at a various stages of product life cycle, and keep improving through the performance, through the ROI, through the technology, through the investment, through the productivity, through the efficiency. And that's where I say the every stage of product life cycle and every stage of plant, this automation, IoT, big data, machine learning, artificial intelligence is becoming a walk of life for the organization. And today we are talking industry 4.0. Very recently I was in Europe, and there I noticed people have started talking about industry 5.0 and how the next stage, specifically using digital twins, how maximum they can take a next step, or the next generation of the technology can be deployed under industry 4.5.0, as they tag it down actually.
Right. I think we will have these.
And I think we have to do the catch-up job. We have to sprint as a India organization, as a India manufacturing community. We have to sprint now to catch up first industry 4.0 and then leap into the industry 5.0.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Sandhya. Venkat?
Yeah, I would put a few points together. See, this when you talk about the digitalization, IoT is a big topic, and sometimes people get confused in the industry. So I would say a few things here. First, digitize everything in your organization, then go for digitalization. Once you go for digitalization, go to IoT or IIoT in a step-by-step manner. Then once you do that, don't forget to do that. Integrate your customer with your whatever initiatives you are taking, and share your data, share your product achievement with him offline, online, whichever way you can do, and connect your suppliers also to the system. And customers, you and supplier, this is a triangle where it drives to the your organizational excellence. For that, first thing is that run the data, take a mock test like a digital sense, as Mr. Rajesh rightly said, that is the trend of the day, and correlate everything, then learn about the machine data and use the cloud computing to your advantage and share, and then at the end, product lifecycle management and develop the new product. These are the small steps you have to take, and take it the initiative to the higher level, not only for the profitability of your organization as a whole, for a country India, we should drive initiative and take it forward to the higher heights.
Right. Thank you, Suresh.
Yeah, so I think a lot has already been said. I'll just make or reiterate 2 points. One is when it was being discussed about cost and ROI, I think a lot of us still get confused about the ROI, because we believe a lot of this is to replace some cheap manpower that we still have in India. Manpower is still very affordable in India. So where is the need to automate, and where is the need to go one step up in terms of digital interface and other things? But one big point that perhaps getting missed in that is, it's not just a replacement of a human or manual activity with an automated one. The other aspect of consistency and perhaps predictability, which Sandhya explained so very beautifully when she was speaking about it, is something which is a long-term gain. Predictability can give you so much upside. She explained a lot of 2-3 examples, but then it works in everything, including the product design, including your other future planning, capacity planning, everything. The consistency is, we all are aware about the process capability. Your manual operations would never give that consistency that you can get from this, and that has got its own inherent benefits, which we should not just miss out while looking at the ROI into this. Second part is, I think the other bottleneck or the reason for failure for many of the projects like this, when we see that they are failing, I think we should stop looking at it like a big project of industry 4, industry 5, implement everything together. we should look at the building blocks. And I think Venkat just explained it in a very simple words. It's like splitting everything into different this thing. You can start from a very simple exercise like having one digital tool in one corner of the factory doing one small thing, to expanding modularly into various things. And then as time goes on, as you start seeing the maturity of this within the organization and the external ecosystem also getting developed, you can keep expanding into this and keep scaling up into this. Then, I mean, we are ready with the building blocks, we are ready with the base, and it can keep giving you incremental benefits. And finally, when everything is ready, you are already there. I mean, otherwise, it sometimes becomes like a binary system. Either we are into industry 4 or we are into industry 0. It's not a case like this. So that's what I would say.
Right. Thank you, Suresh. Rajesh, your closing thoughts?
In fact, from my side, there are 3 points that I would. One, certainly, we all know that a good amount of change is happening. If I see the future, it's my automobile, they're going from manual to autonomous. So in close to around 30 to 40 years of time, whole of automobile industry will see a huge change. Second is in the area of industries, there is a big change in the mindset of the leaders has started happening. So the leaders today, they don't want to be reactive anymore. They want to be proactive. So in very short and very straightforward, I want to say that means today the leaders, in fact, the people who is manning the main function, main organization, they want to be a type of God with some power minus, means from the point of view of mind, they want to become something which they know in advance what is going to happen. And for this, there are tools which really everybody has started adopting, and this will see more and more adoption in coming time. Second point that I want to say at the end is everybody has got its own set of problems, own issues. Everybody is trying to solve all those issues. And for these issues, today, the good thing is that we have got lots of tools. The tools, which are some digital, which we some say IoT, these are some simply tools to help us to make sure that we overcome the challenges that we are facing. So right adoption of the right tool is the need of the hour. We sometimes fail and we sometimes say it didn't work for me because the right people didn't adapt the right tool. They had to apply some tool, but they applied some other tool. They found some failure, and then certainly once again the work started from scratch here. So it is very important that the right people should be there, right skilling should be there, because with all this higher technology, advanced technology, one thing we are lagging is really the skill and the quality of the people that we are having. So our new generation should be so skilled up, and it is certainly a joint responsibility of the government and the organization and the complete ecosystem, that in what way we need to skill up that mind so that they are in a position to take the shoe of the requirement which is there into the organization or any industry which is there effectively and more efficient. Because if that will not happen, there will be huge losses, because all these new technologies are not cheap. They're very expensive, and it takes quite a good amount of time to ultimately bring from the thought process to the actual. And then when you fail, it's certainly a big pain and big loss for the organization. So picking the right skill, those right skills should pick the right tool, and then those right tool will certainly help the organization to move to the next level.
Fantastic. And I think, I think our panelists have, I think, captured all the points that we discussed very well. So I'd just like to close with a few thoughts. And, possibly since Rajesh talked about, the need to predict and possibly play God. So earlier we used to say, in God we trust, for all else bring data. But now we say, for all else bring data, but not just data, actionable information, which can allow us to do something with it. And which can help us predict. So the whole idea is, how can we make our system more predictable, sustainable? I think that's the key word. And when we're talking of sustainable, the system is sustainable only if all the elements of these ecosystem go hand in hand. It's not either or, it's and. So if we integrate, like we talked about, the end-to-end value chain from vendors to customer, and everybody wins, and everybody will win only if we are able to integrate and share information and feedback, and there are automatic, and possibly here we don't need manual interventions like we just talked about. So that's where the tools can help us and truly create a completely synchronized ecosystem, which is essentially the intent of Industry 4.0. So those are my closing thoughts, and I think I'm sure the audience would have picked up several points from the discussion that has happened, and thanks to them for patiently listening in, and thank you panelists for bringing in the wonderful insights to this discussion. So thank you all.